Hello there, people, and welcome to Flight Box. My name is Ray. Thank you so much for joining me. We're here to talk about the season finale of Daredevil Born Again Season 1, and what a season finale it indeed was. I have quite a bit to say, and I'm going to warn you right now up front that there is going to be some socio-political talk with respect to this particular episode, because it's obvious. And when it's there, and when it presents itself within art, I refuse to ignore it. I could probably gloss over it and just let everybody come up to their own interpretations of what they saw in the show, but no, I don't shy away from this stuff. I am not afraid of talking about it. And I know a number of you that listen to this show and a number of you that follow me on social media know where I'm coming from with this, and our interests and, social political aims are aligned at this point in time. And it is so incredibly clear what was going on in the show, what has been going on in this show, and I can't ignore it. So I'm going to take a little bit of time, maybe not here at the beginning of the review, but I'm going to take a little bit of time to talk about that. So just giving you a heads up, if that's not for you, fine. You can check out, wait until next week when we start talking about Andor Season 2, but, I don't think you're going to necessarily avoid political stuff with that show. I mean, look, this is the nature of art. This is the nature of stories with meaning and purpose. They reflect real life. And they talk about, the good ones anyway, the best ones talk about the situations that we actually deal with. It's not just simply turning the brain off for an hour and, devolving and allowing all of the suspension of disbelief to overtake you completely. No, a lot of this stuff, a lot of the good stuff, tells us some things about ourselves and the world that we live in. And this show most certainly has done that throughout all 9 of its episodes, but I mean, so incredibly glaringly in this episode. And I'm going to get into it a little bit, so just a little bit of a heads up there. But of course, before diving into my main thoughts with respect to this season finale and the season as a whole, I just want to remind everybody listening to this show that you can find it and all of my other shows at theflightcast.com or wherever you get your podcast. That includes Apple Podcast, the Flightcast YouTube page, Spotify, and Pandora, or wherever you get your podcast, whether it's Overcast or any of the other podcatcher apps that you use. You can totally find this show, Flightbox, on Wednesdays. You can find the main show, the Flightcast, on Mondays. And on Friday, you can find Friday Flight, which is the listener feedback show. Remember, the deadline for this week's listener feedback, just about every week's listener feedback, is 12 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, because I will get the feedback and then I will record the feedback episode later that evening after I return home from my daily 9 to 5, if you will. And also, special for this week, there will be an episode of Flight Review, because even though it's not a comic book movie, I will be watching and reviewing Sinners. That's right, the new Ryan Coogler film starring Michael B. Jordan and Haley Steinfeld, among many others. I will definitely be watching and reviewing that film this particular weekend, so look for that review topside here on either Saturday or Sunday, probably Saturday more than likely. And also want to take a moment to thank all the very loyal supporters of patreon.com/theflightcast. Hope that you've been enjoying all the bonus content, the Flight Speed episodes, the extra episodes of Flight Review that I've been doing, where I've been reviewing movies that you more than likely have seen that I have not seen yet. I've talked about Hellraiser, I've talked about Dunkirk, I've talked about Uncle Buck, I've talked about Soul, and this upcoming Sunday I will be talking about a movie that is connected to a very poignant anniversary that is coming up just a matter of days now, with respect to a revered musical figure, one that is a massive presence in my life, has been a massive presence in my family's life, and that individual made a movie that I've never watched. A very popular, well-known classic film that I have never watched, but I own it now in glorious 4K because it was released in 4K Steelbook last year, and I will be watching it for a Patreon-exclusive episode of Flight Review. That'll be dropping on Sunday as well, so stay tuned for that. Hope you're all enjoying the other bonus content, and as always, cannot thank you enough for your support to patreon.com/theflightcast. All right, let's get into it. I know we all have thoughts about the season finale of Daredevil Born Again. I've seen some of your thoughts. Phil, Anthony, a couple of you, I've seen some of your thoughts on it, and I will just tell you that I'm a bit more bullish with respect to how this season finale landed for me. That's always the question, right? When you talk about a season finale of a show, did it stick the landing? If it's been a good season, right? If it's been a season that you've enjoyed, did it stick the landing? Or if it was a season that you thought was meh, did the landing improve things by the time the season was over? And either way, I would say they definitely stuck the landing for me. Now, I did see a couple of comments where Phil, Anthony, you both liked the show, but you did mention, I think, Anthony, you were the one that said that it had a strong beginning and a strong ending and was kind of meh in the middle. And okay, I get that perspective. I do. But I really, personally, just subjectively speaking here, it's all subjective. I don't think it's fair to judge this season of Daredevil Born Again in a vacuum. And the reason I don't think that it's fair is because let me ask you this one particular question that kind of sheds light on my point that I'm about to make here. And before I ask this question, of course, this is your only spoiler warning. These episodes are spoiler filled anyway, right? But this is your official warning. Spoilers going from here on out as far as the season finale of Daredevil Born Again. But here's my question to ask everybody who thinks it may be fair to judge this season in a vacuum. My question is, did you know who called Frank before she showed up on screen? If the answer is yes, then that's the reason why it's not fair to judge the season in a vacuum. If the answer is no, then you missed a awesome piece of context that you would have had you watched the first 3 seasons of Daredevil over on Netflix. And that's my whole point, is that as I've been saying from the beginning, and as I think a number of you have agreed with me, this is Daredevil season 4. Right? I mean, Daredevil Born Again is like its own show, I guess, within the MCU proper on Disney Plus. Okay, fine, whatever. It's Daredevil season 4. And yes, I know all the behind the scenes stuff and all that. They were going in a different direction originally, and they made changes, and they brought Deborah Ann Wool and Eldon Henson back in, and also Wilson Bethel, and they made all kinds of connections, if you will, in the secondary plan, the plan B, I suppose, right? Which is the season that we've got, the first 9 episodes of this that we have, right? Regardless of whatever pivots they made, this is the season we've got. This is what it is. This is what's canon. And there are way too many references made to the first 3 seasons of the Marvel Netflix series for us to just judge this one by itself. We have to look at this as a whole. This is a giant narrative being told. And it's not just a narrative about New York and Hell's Kitchen and whatever's going on in that corner of the MCU. It's really a narrative about Matt Murdock and Wilson Fisk, aka Kingpin, right? It's about the Devil of Hell's Kitchen versus Kingpin. That's what this all boils down to. It's what we've seen the majority of this show. And this is just another chapter in the evolution of that particular story and all the other characters involved with that story. The older ones that we've gotten to know from the old Marvel Netflix show, and the new ones that we've gotten to know so far in this particular season of the show. But it's all together. It's all one piece. It's all one giant narrative in that regard. So if somebody has a complaint, and I haven't seen a ton of complaints because I do try to avoid a lot of the complaints, and a lot of the critics' reviews before I give my own, because I don't want my thoughts influenced by anybody else. But if anybody out there is talking about how, well, it wasn't the best season because it didn't tie up these loose ends and I still have so many unanswered questions, well, here's the thing. It's part of a whole narrative of character development and story development that started amazingly 10 years ago, right? Isn't that what Charlie Cox posted on his Instagram 10 years and 5 days ago, I think, as of today or as of yesterday, whenever the night that the season finale dropped on Disney Plus, that was when the journey started, right? It's been that long, right? And so it goes all the way to the past. And then on top of that, it's very clear, since this season finale didn't tie up all the loose ends, right? It ended very much like, to make this relatable to MCU fans, Infinity War. This was essentially Infinity War. We did not get all of our questions answered. We did not get full resolution to everything that is going on in New York. We most certainly did not. Things are in tatters. Things are a wreck. Things are a mess. Martial law has been declared. Things are not good whatsoever in the city of New York. They've only gotten progressively worse since Kingpin was elected mayor, and now he is full-blown Mayor Kingpin at this point. We will get into what he did in this episode in a little bit here, but my ultimate point is, this is also why, for those of you that saw the spoiler photos of Season 2 currently in production, and I'm still not revealing what was in those photos. I know we've talked about it. I know others have mentioned it before, but I'm not going to bring it up myself, in case anybody listening to this show still doesn't want to know what we saw. But the point is, this is why I believe in the controlled leak, right? Controlled leaks don't happen all the time. And it varies, and it's all guesswork. I can't tell you for certain. It's not like I've got somebody on the horn at Disney that says, yes, they absolutely put this photo out because they wanted this to happen and they wanted that reaction. No, I don't know that for certain, but I am just guessing that people at Disney, especially after 17 years of the MCU, know exactly how fickle we are as fans. And they know precisely or at least they had an idea a couple of weeks ago that, hey, you know what? A number of them might be a little unsatisfied, or maybe a lot unsatisfied, and incredibly fickle with respect to this particular season finale. So guess what? We're going to throw them this bone that we know they can't resist looking at, just so that they can understand that all of this is going to continue in season 2, even though, logically speaking, it would have done that. Because our first question would have been, if we hadn't seen any set photos, hey, when's season 2 coming out? Well, we already know. Right? We already have been told it'll be next year, and we know that it's in production, right? So we know that season 2 is happening. Therefore, as fans, knowing that season 2 is happening, we should understand when plot lines and certain loose ends are not tied up at the end of season 1, right? It's not necessarily a cliffhanger, because the events of season 1 have ended, and things have progressed as badly as they have. You know what it's like? It's like the end of the Batman. Infinity War and the Batman is kind of where we're at with this, right? And there's definitely, it's an in-between, right? Because the villains have definitely won, right? It's definitely not a victory for the heroes. It is a victory for the villains, in this case, Kingpin and his ilk, right? And on top of that, it's a case where the city is under siege, and under this case, not a flood, but a totalitarian rule. And now it's all about building the resistance. What did he say? What did Matt say? He said, resist, rebel, rebuild, right? Is that what he said? Oh, I will. I'm going to get into that. Let's not get into the social political stuff just yet. But with respect to that, that's why I don't judge this in a vacuum, guys, because it's obvious that we're going to see this continued in season 2 of this particular show. And there's enough connective tissue. There's more than enough connecting threads, not just with characters, but with events that go all the way back to the first 3 seasons of Marvel Netflix, and certainly that season 3. I mean, look at that first scene that we get in this episode where we see the flashback of Vanessa going to hire Bullseye to do the deed and kill Foggy in this regard. And about that, okay, look, I realize that we haven't had that tied up yet. I will go on the record with the whole Foggy thing is to say this. Yes, I am one of the people that has the theory that he's still alive. Let's just say that he isn't. Let's just say that Foggy really is dead after all this time. Well, I still will not be happy about that. That will be one of the demerits that I personally subjectively will have, because I think that's a bullshit thing to do to Eldon Henson, in my opinion, right? Clearly, you brought Deborah Ann Wool back. You brought John Bernthal back as Frank Castle. You brought those characters back, and that you've given them enough of a big role here with respect to Matt's arc to bring Eldon Henson back and have him do all the press tours and all that stuff just for him to be dead after the first 5 minutes of this show. I think that's bullshit. I don't like that at all, if that is indeed the case. So I'm still holding out hope, justice for Eldon Henson as an actor, and also the character of Foggy Nelson, like as a character. I'm still holding out hope that somehow he's still alive. But in the event that he isn't, I'll accept it. It is what it is. I won't like it, though. I think it's a bullshit move if that's what they did with respect to that. But either way, Vanessa goes to the mental institution where Bullseye is at. This is after he's had the procedure, where the cognium has been augmented into his skin, so that's into his bones. So that's why he survived Matt throwing him off a flipping building, and that's why he's got the enhanced abilities, right? He's incredibly lethal and horrifically terrifying at this point in time, right? There's almost a Kilgrave level of fear with respect to his abilities as a seemingly regular but completely irregular human in that regard. But Vanessa explains that the FBI, the whole thing with the corruption of the FBI levels is what got Kingpin pardoned, and she basically has extended the pardon, if you will, to Poindexter so that he can go take care of Foggy, right? And he's in the win, right? Because we see that brief scene with a meeting between them, and then we see that Bullseye is completely in the win, right? He is on the loose, right? Like they have not found him, and that is not at all what Kingpin's focus is. His focus is, I'm going to use this to my rageful best, even though I did not get shot. That fool Murdoch got in the way of the bullet and took it for me, and I am alive, but I am going to use his selflessness and his ridiculousness in order to propel this into my final solution, if you will, where I am going to make the task force just like the Fingermen in V for Vendetta. Yeah, I'm referencing another comic here, and I'm going to install a curfew, and I'm going to make martial law, and I'm going to do all this scary shit to New York so that I can rule it like a king in totalitarian fashion. Yes, he uses all of that as a springboard. And he also decides that he's going to use Con Ed to shut the power grid off for the night and really cause the lawlessness because he knows what'll happen. That's the little push that he's talking about to get everybody going, right? He wants New York in chaos. He wants New York in tatters so that he can present the solution to save everyone and solve everything. This is a false flag event if there ever was one. And he is manipulating it from the beginning to manipulate the entire city into being his lapdogs in this regard. And unfortunately, it works. I mean, it got him voted, right? It got him voted in, and it works perfectly. And now vigilantism is completely legal, and excessive and lethal force has been authorized to dispatch them. And this is why we find ourselves in a situation where Matt has got to sneak out of the hospital because Kingpin has totally sent his stooge Bucky to go make certain, hey, give him that little injection that'll stop his heart, so it'll make it seem like he succumbed to his wounds and he's already dead. Because here's the thing, as diabolical as Kingpin is, he knows that there's only one person that can stop him, and that is Matt Murdock. So in his mind, it's not enough that he's got the task force. It's not enough that he's got this army. It's not enough that he's got this Red Hook deal, which apparently we now find out in this episode, oh, that's like non-taxable ground, no borders, no customs, no nothing, and there's all this clean money laundering and operations that they're building a massive basin and they can do whatever illegal shit they want and it's completely above board. Holy crap, right? It doesn't matter that he has all of that. He needs to take the most important chess piece off the board, and that is Matt Murdock, because that's the one person who has stopped him before and will stop him again. And naturally, Matt being, enhanced himself, gets out of the hospital in time. Buck can't get to him. Of course not. There's no way he was going to get to him. But he gets to his apartment and Frank is waiting for him. And that's when getting back to the phone call, Frank says he got a phone call. And I knew instantly who gave him that phone call. I knew it. I absolutely knew it. I didn't even need Matt to, say Karen's name when he first came out of, being unconscious with Heather and McDuffie in the room. I didn't even need that to be the drop. I'm like, yeah, I know exactly who called him, and I know she's going to show up. And she did. Karen Page absolutely returned. So we got the gang back together minus Foggy in this regard. And again, this is connective tissue that you have. If you've seen at the very least season 2 of Daredevil over on Netflix, then you understand the connection that Karen and Frank Castle have. And you know exactly why she would be the one that would call him to go protect Matt. And I tell you what, before getting into the rest of this, we do need to have this side conversation. And I've already posted about this on Threads. But here's the deal. I'm addressing MCU fans. And in particular, I'm addressing MCU fans that perhaps maybe you had a bit of scorn and derision for the tone of a previous comic book franchise, otherwise known as the DC Extended Universe. I think the term that I heard being used, specifically after Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice was released, was Murderverse. Yes, I think I heard that, Murderverse, because people die, and it's dark, and it's gritty, and it's scary for children, and this is not the way that you should be presenting your heroes and your universe. It's too dark, and it's too serious. Yeah, we're done with that. We're absolutely done with that MCU, because guess what? The MCU is now the Murderverse. Okay? There is absolutely nothing, and I mean, go scour Zack Snyder's trilogy, right? Watch all 4 hours and 2 minutes of Zack Snyder's Justice League after watching the 3 hour and 9 minute long Ultimate Edition of Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice, or maybe that's 302. I don't know. Either way, watch that one, and then watch Man of Steel. Find me a scene where any character, I don't care who it is, find me a scene where any character, good or bad, in Zack Snyder's quote-unquote Murderverse, where somebody's skull is actually crushed on camera in all gory, bloody, and fleshy fashion. Yeah, we're done here. We're done here. The MCU's the Murderverse. We're done. We're absolutely done. I don't want to hear shit about the DCEU being the Murderverse. There's nothing even remotely as graphic in any of the DCEU, whether it's Snyder's films, whether it's Suicide Squad, whether it's Wonder Woman, anything from the Hamada portion of the catalog. There is nothing in any of the 15 films of the DCEU that is even remotely close to what we saw in terms of raw violence, blood, and gore in just this episode. That's probably why it's called Straight to Hell. In fact, it's a big reason why it's called Straight to Hell. But even before we get to that skull-crushing disgustingness, we got Frank Castle, aka the Punisher, going on a killing spree. And don't get me wrong, was it satisfying to see him take out the Punisher sycophants? Yes, it was, absolutely. And I will table another part of that for the socio-political discussion that I'm totally going to have here in a little bit. But he's got an axe in another dude's head. He's stabbing guys in the neck. He's shooting them in the head. There's blood splatters everywhere. This is an unprecedented level of violence and blood for the MCU. And the only reason we haven't seen it in a film is because that would have required the film to be rated R. And I mean like hard R in that regard. Yeah, make all the jokes about hard R that you like. The point is, we're done with this Murderverse accusation talk. The MCU now has that title. The MCU is officially the Murderverse, if we're going to have that title. Now, I'm not bothered by it. You know that nothing in this particular season finale bugged me at all with respect to the gore and with respect to the realism and the death that was occurring on screen. Because I am an adult, and I'd like to think I'm a rational adult, and I like to think that most of the time I'm a mature adult in that regard, right? Sometimes I'm immature about certain things, but in this case, that stuff has never bothered me because, well, you see that kind of violence in certain comic runs, right? And to me, from the beginning, this entire season finale, they were just like, okay, after 8 episodes of like, I don't know, telling the character development and kind of straddling the fence between the suspension of disbelief of a comic book and the gritty realism that, was definitely woven into the original series, it felt to me like the showrunners just went, F it. We're just going to go straight comic book for this season finale. And they did. Because even that scene where Kingpin crushes Gallows' skull, wasn't that a comic panel? Couldn't you just envision that being drawn by a Daredevil artist? And I don't, go ahead, whoever knows, Jared, the Daredevil artist, okay, fill in the blanks, whatever, find the one that would have drawn the most gory, most ridiculously, suspension of disbelief situation, because a real person, I mean, it was Game of Thrones level, right? Okay, remember when what was it the Hound, or was it his brother, not the Hound, but the other one, the Mountain, right? Remember when the Mountain crushed Prince Oberyn's skull in, what was that, season 5, right? That was a very unsightly end for Pedro Pascal. Who would have thought then that we'd see him in so many other things after that? I digress. That's what this was like. That's absolutely what this was like. But this was arguably gorier, right? Maybe. I mean, I don't know. That was pretty gory as well. But the camera lingered on his destroyed skull and bits of flesh and blood in Fisk's hands, right? This is unprecedented. The MCU has never done this. This is incredibly shocking to those of you that, oh, but Disney, how could you? Because it's Disney. Okay, before this, 10, 20 years ago, they just did this under the Touchstone banner. It's not like they can't do adult shit. And remember a couple of years ago, or however long ago it was, they put parental locks on Disney Plus. Same thing. And you know what? They specifically did that when they brought the Marvel Netflix content on, because that content, right, over on Netflix was certainly, TVMA or above in that regard. Whether it was Daredevil, Luke Cage, Jessica Jones season 1 for sure, and definitely The Punisher, right? They had to put the parental controls on the app when that stuff came aboard. So now when it comes to a new season of the Daredevil series, go for broke. I have no issues with it, none whatsoever. It was graphic, it was gory, it was disgusting, but it fit the character. That's how ruthless Fisk is. That's how ruthless the Kingpin can become. That's how angry and that's how strong he's supposed to be, right? I mean, D'Onofrio, he's not wearing a fat suit. They're using his build for this, right? But they're not doing what they do. He doesn't look like Kingpin in the Spider-Verse films, right? He's not like comic book Kingpin that is just comically oversized, right? But he's still supposed to be that strong. And we've seen him be this brutal or close to this brutal before in the show. Remember how he killed Yurik? Remember how he's killed other people, right? So it's not like he's not capable of this within this universe. This is just the goriest that we've ever seen it. And it happened on a Disney Plus show. So yeah. We're done with any Murderverse accusations. The Murderverse title now officially belongs to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Deal with it. Because Zack Snyder never did a damn thing close to this episode in any of his three DCEU films. Period. Just wanted to get that out there. Now let us continue. Because, like I was saying last week, I said BB and Gallo are in trouble. And boy, was I right about Gallo. Gallo is effing dead. Gallo is gone. Gallo is. He resigned and he turned his back on the city. You lying son of a bitch. You crushed his skull in front of your crooked ass police officers after Sheila turned him in. And that's it. Sheila's like, oh, that was a self preservation move. I know it was. Because she's scared. She's terrified for her life because the crazies have taken over. The inmates are running the asylum, and she just wants to survive. And I can't blame her for wanting to survive, but damn it. Damn it, Sheila. I'm going to need you to redeem yourself at some point when Matt gets this all figured out, when everybody else gets this all figured out. I'm really going to need that from you, Sheila. I like you, Sheila. You've been a voice of reason so far this season, Sheila, but you turncoated at the wrong moment. You got Gallo killed. Gallo is dead. His blood and his bits of skull are on your hands, Sheila. I understand you did what you had to do to survive, but you are going to need to redeem yourself or die. And somehow, like have that, the sacrifice, right? The sacrificial death. I'm just, spitballing here, just thinking what might happen to her character, what type of resolution her character might have that can make up for the fact that she got Gallo horrifically murdered at this point, right? So she's sitting in the mayor's office, and I mean, the inmates are in charge. Flippin' Daniel's sitting there really trying to look like his daddy in real life. Okay, Michael Gandolfini doing his best James Gandolfini look and impression that he can do, right, with respect to that. He just, that aura, and it's in the eyes, man. Like, you can see it. There's some time, I remember saying earlier, I was like, well, I don't totally buy it because I don't think he has a delivery. He's starting to warm to that, and he's starting to really turn on that intimidation charm. The voice is still a little different, but it's like, nah, he's got the gene. It's kind of in there. Okay, I get it. But he and Buck are just, they are the Stooges, man, and they are leading the charge of this absolute lunacy that is happening now, where the martial law has been declared, the anti-vigilante task force, they send a squad to try and take out Matt. And, that's where all of the gruesome Punisher deaths occur, right? They got everybody guarding, the Red Hook. And, Karen tells Frank that, she doesn't buy that he doesn't care. And of course we know Frank actually cares about Red and about Karen and everything. So yeah, he goes down there to try to deal with the sycophants himself. And, it doesn't work out. It gets him captured. But, and that's where we leave him, right? Because they're not going to kill him, right? They're not going to kill him. They're going to keep him captured because they want to make an example of him with all the other vigilantes that they've now got caged up, while Matt has snuck away, and he is now building a resistance. He and Karen, if you will, are now building a resistance. So I think now we're at this point where Karen has returned, and I think she's probably in the next season for a longer haul than she was in for this season. Until this Fisk situation is resolved, she's going to be on the front lines helping in that regard, and she is kind of trapped, right? She can't necessarily leave the city, can she? I don't know. I mean, Fisk knows who she is, right? And all manner of, Fisk and Buck and the others, like they're aware of Matt's identity in that regard. And now it's up to Matt, as Daredevil to, raise this rebellion, raise this army, to hopefully take Fisk down. And just when you use everything in its right place in a way like this, right? And that's probably my favorite Radiohead tune of all time. Yes, I am a fan of Radiohead. And that's my favorite album. That's my favorite Radiohead album, Kid A, because it's the most electronic, and I love electronic music. But at any rate, when you use everything in its right place, like I've heard it used many times, and there are a couple times where it was used to perfection, one of them being Vanilla Sky, the opening scene of Vanilla Sky, for anybody that has seen that movie. Cameron Crowe directed, starring Tom Cruise, Penelope Cruz, and Cameron Diaz, among others, right? Like, there are certain times when everything in its right place is used to perfection, and this was definitely one of those times. And it was just haunting, and it fit the juxtaposition. I love these juxtaposition scenes. That's a great structure that I hope they continue to employ, where you're seeing things from both perspectives of, what Kingpin is doing and what another one of our heroes is doing, whether it's Matt or somebody else in this case, right? In this case, it was juxtaposed between what Kingpin was doing and what Frank was doing when he was talking to the Punisher sycophants, right? The Punisher fans, if you will, the ones who worship him in that regard, the hero worship, the fanboys, as he called it, right? Just, I love that technique, and I hope they continue to do that in the next season. But, ultimately, this is where we're at. We know who the good guys are that hopefully will be leading this resistance going forward, right? We know about Matt, we know about McDuffie, we know about BB, and we remember BB told us in the penultimate episode what her motivations were, and now the only person that she spilled the beans to, Gallo, is dead. So she's still in there, she's still embedded, she's still, doing her thing, right? But she wants the killer of her uncle taken down. So it's just a question of how far she's willing to go, right? And of course, we saw Angela on the streets, right? As seeing all the chaos happening and what the task force and whatnot is doing with the martial law, right? We see all of our players at work, and basically at one last shot before we get to the end of the season and before we get into next season, right? To see exactly how the rest of this plays out. So the stage has been set. The tone has been set. Things are in motion, and New York City is absolutely under siege. And before I get to the social political part of this, I do want to address one other thing, because this is a complaint that I most certainly have seen, and that is where's Spider-Man? How can New York be under siege and Spider-Man does nothing? Kingpin is a Spider-Man villain. There's no reason that Tom Holland shouldn't have made an appearance in this episode. They need to get that deal with Sony figured out. This is bullshit. Okay, here we go. Brace yourselves for this little mini rant, because you may or may not agree with me on this one. But you know what this is? This is the Batman's not in the Penguin all over again. All over again. Did you not read the title of the show? The title of the show that we've been watching for the last 9 weeks is Daredevil, Born Again. I'm going to repeat that because it bears repeating. The title of the show that we have been watching for the last 9 weeks on Disney Plus is Daredevil, Born Again. Not Daredevil and Spider-Man, Born Again. Not Daredevil and Spider-Man Fight the Kingpin, not Daredevil and Spider-Man Save New York. Daredevil Born Again. It's Matt Murdock's show, not Peter Parker's show. Do you complain when Spider-Man doesn't show up in a Daredevil book when he's fighting Kingpin or Bullseye, or when some crazy shit is happening in New York? I don't know, because I haven't read any Daredevil runs, but I'm willing to bet that if the book says Daredevil, you're not that pissed that Spider-Man didn't show up, because Spider-Man has his own damn book. Why is it so difficult for you to accept that in movies or in the MCU? I don't understand this. No, I take it back. I do understand it. It's impatience, and it's fan-fickle behavior yet again. And it's the Batman complaint all over again. I did not need to see Robert Pattinson's Batman in any of the 8 episodes of The Penguin. None. Did not need to see him in any of them, because the show was called The Penguin, not The Batman. I will see the Batman again in the Batman Part 2. Go ahead and cue the jokes about how it's canceled and James Gunn isn't going to let it happen. Yeah, go ahead. Keep singing that bullshit. Whatever. Until that's made official, which I have all the patience in the world. I don't care if that movie comes out in 2029. Whenever it comes out, I will sit down and watch it, and just as you will. But whatever, digressing here. Back to the subject at hand. I don't care that Spider-Man isn't in this show. I don't care. And this is exclusively a fan complaint. And I mean specifically a comic book fan complaint. Because I bet even people who have been fans of the MCU from the movies and haven't read the comics still don't largely care that Spider-Man wasn't in here. They still don't largely know or care that Kingpin is a Spider-Man villain. Or that, oh, well, it's in New York. Because, again, is Hell's Kitchen the same as Queens? No, not necessarily. But yes, Spider-Man does patrol all of New York. But it doesn't matter because it's not his show. It's Daredevil's show. Why do we always have to do this? Where when it's one particular character's show, but it takes place in an area that another hero happens to be around, why hasn't that other hero shown up? Look, whatever, the legalities of it doesn't matter, okay? I understand that there's this whole thing where Sony and Marvel Studios have got to play nice or whatever, right? And it's got to be there's probably some form of legalities as to why Tom Holland's Spider-Man can't show up in the show. But that doesn't matter because it's not his show. It's not a Spider-Man show. It's not a team-up. It's Daredevil. It's Daredevil Born Again. Period. Okay, it's season 4 of the Daredevil series we started watching 10 years ago on Netflix. That's what it is, okay? And we're not teasing Defenders here. We're not doing any of that. We're setting up connective tissue within the MCU proper. And by the way, did you not see that Spider-Man Brand New Day has a release date? You can't be patient enough for that. You gotta have it all, right? I want my connectivity here, and I want this to work this way. I want it to work that way. Well, it doesn't always work that way in the comics. Again, I haven't read any Daredevil books, but I'm pretty sure that Spider-Man doesn't always show up in a Daredevil solo book when shit pops off in New York. I'm pretty sure that there are plenty of stories where New York is in trouble and Matt Murdock has got to deal with it himself. I'm pretty sure that's happened. If that hasn't happened, listen, Jared, anybody else, let me know if I'm wrong on that one, if I'm off base. Has Spider-Man shown up in every Daredevil solo story where something happens in New York and it befalls all of New York? Has it always been a team up with those two? I know they've probably teamed up. I'm sure that's more than likely happened. But does it always happen? I highly doubt that. But hey, you know what? If I'm wrong, that's fine. Either way, I still don't give a shit. I still don't care that Spider-Man isn't in this. It does not matter. I don't care how this ended. I don't care how, New York blacked out, everything under martial law, Kingpin in charge and getting on television and basically calling everybody out. No, I don't care. I don't care. It's a Daredevil story, right? It's Daredevil show. That's all I care about at this point. Daredevil. So that doesn't bother me. Anybody complaining about conveniences as far as Karen showing up, that doesn't bother me because Heather has basically kicked his ass to the curb. Heather has decided to side with the devil. Not the devil of Hell's Kitchen, but the devil himself. Kingpin, okay? I would be honored, Mayor Fisk. Whatever with you, okay? You're this brilliant psychologist, right? But you had your head so far up your ass with respect to your perspective on vigilantes that you can't see that Kingpin is playing you and everybody else like a flippin' loot. It's ridiculous, and I don't think that she's necessarily. I don't think it's the dumbing down of her character, but I do think it's the anti of her character. It's like, wow, you're just not seeing this at all. Well, you're either gonna have egg on your face or you're gonna die. One of the two. Like, you're going to be a sacrificial lamb somewhere. It's not going to work out for you, Heather. And so since you've decided to abandon Matt in the hour of need for the entirety of the city, Karen has to come back. And you know what? It's just as well, because he's better suited with Karen than he is with you anyway, right? I am totally in that mode. I'm glad that Karen has returned because it should be Karen and Matt anyway, not Karen and Heather. Heather is a turncoat at this point. Whatever. And if she redeems herself, cool. If not, not a big deal. She really has not supported Matt in the last couple of episodes, and I get it. She's coming at it from a different perspective. She doesn't know that he's Daredevil. She doesn't understand. Yeah, but you know what? If Sheila and the others and Gallo, before he died, and BB and everybody else can see what the hell Kingpin is doing, then she should be able to see what the hell Kingpin is doing. And she's not doing this out of fear. She's willingly giving herself over, okay? Sheila is scared. Sheila is shaking in the mayor's office like, oh my God, what have I done, right? I'm waiting for her redemption, like I said earlier. Heather, she can be redeemed or whatever. I don't care. At this point, she's in the way, okay? So those are my thoughts on Heather. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is. Matt's got work to do. And he's got an army to raise, and he's got a resistance to build against this absolute chaos that is occurring in New York City. And about that chaos, I warned you about this point of the review before, and I'm just going to, here it comes, right? Here comes the social-political portion of the particular review here. It is amazing to me that this show was finished before the 2024 election, because, wow, it was as though this entire season, and certainly this particular episode, was literally designed to piss off the Red Hats. Like, I've heard that, like, the last season of The Boys, which I am behind on The Boys, right? I didn't finish season 3. I didn't watch Gen V, and I haven't seen season 4 of either. And I got to get majorly caught up before the 5th season premieres. I think it's sometime this year, if I'm not mistaken. But either way, I heard that the last season of The Boys made it very clear, like put a bell on it that it wasn't in favor of the Red Hats and more of the alt-righters and GOP people were being called out in the show, and they were just now discovering it in that regard, right? And it's almost as though like this show is doing the exact same thing. I mentioned the hats in the election when Kingpin got elected in the first place. All of his policies and his mindsets, all of it is here. everything, right? Like all the stuff that we've been dealing with in real life, all the fascism concerns and martial law and all the worries, all of it was in this episode. How was all of it there? Like, how were they just? It's as though this is one of those weird cases where like art is imitating life, and no, it hasn't gotten that far yet. But there are plenty of people that are quite fearful that it could get to that point in real life, right? And it was all there, like all the subtext, like all the false flag stuff, the enemies list and the extortion, the blackmailing of the city council, the continued criminal operations that this whole mayoral thing is completely supporting at this point in time, the sycophants and the mindless cult that have built themselves around Kingpin at this point. And then there were two things, there were two definitive things to me that just, it's funny because these things have come up in conversation recently, right? That I've been seeing people talk about the Punisher on social media and about how, all of the red hats that wear Punisher logos because they idolize Frank Castle and he's like their hero in that regard. And many of us have said in real life, the Punisher would hate you in real life. The Punisher is not your friend. The Punisher is not a fan of you in real life. And it was as though the writers of this show decided, hey, we're going to put Frank Castle in a position where he actually will answer this question for all of us. And Frank acted exactly the way we said he would act when he was confronted. And after, and Powell, it was Powell. I was so hoping that Powell was going to get one of those headshots or one of those axes to the head. I still hope it happens. I still hope Frank absolutely kills Powell in the worst, most gruesome way. I really need Powell to die. Like, just from a mean, angry, vitriolic standpoint of a horrible character within a television series, I need that dude to get got by Frank Castle at this point. But when he's sitting there captured by all the dudes wearing his logo, and they've got the logo on his bullets, right? And they figured out which one of them it was one of the brown ones, because yes, there are a couple of brown ones. There are a couple of fans of Harriet Beecher Stowe that are in here, and if you don't know what I'm talking about there, that's a phrase that I like to use on occasion because it's connected to another obvious phrase, right? Harriet Beecher Stowe wrote a book many, 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 many years ago. Go look up the name of that book and you'll understand what I mean when I call certain people of a particular persuasion fans of Harriet Beecher Stowe. At any rate, there are a couple of them in this, anti-vigilante task force rank that wear the Punisher's logo, and the one who had the logo on his bullets, that's the one that killed Hector. Which, by the way, just as an aside, I did not know. I just found out last week that Camar de los Reyes, the actor that plays Hector Garcia, died. I didn't know this. He died in 2023, right? So that's how long ago he filmed his scenes. He died on Christmas Eve 2023 at the age of 56. I did not know that. I did not know that he had passed away. So, I mean, they shot that way long ago, right? That tells you how long in, in development. And I didn't see the dedication, like to him, or maybe I did and I didn't know that was his name, right? And just somehow that information, escaped. He died of cancer, just F cancer, seriously, F cancer. But at any rate, I didn't know that, and that just made that even more sad in that regard, right, with respect to Hector's death. But no, he finds the guy that, he found out which one killed Hector, and he keeps Frank from killing him because that's still him that's Matt, still trying to not let the devil and the darkness completely overtake him, even though I'm totally like, Frank, just shoot him. Frank, just go ahead and shoot him. Just go ahead. You've shot everybody else. Just go ahead and shoot him, right? And so we get to the scene later where, Powell and the others are talking about how it's an honor, this is after he's killed like 10 of them. He's killed 10 of these Punisher fanboys, right? These crooked cops that worship the Punisher. He's killed 10 of them. They still won't kill him. They've used the anti-lethal rounds, and they've knocked him out, and they've got him tied up, and they're basically saying this is your opportunity. You can join us. You don't have to run and you don't have to hide anymore, because they can't kill him. He's their hero. And he's just like, all of you are clowns, and this is ridiculous. You don't know my pain, yada, 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 right? And F you, this and that. Like, Frank behaves exactly as we have told these red hats and these morons exactly how he would behave in their presence. And the writers and the showrunners, bravo. Absolutely bravo for answering that damn question in the show, because that's exactly how it will go down. We've all said that was how it was going to go down, and it's precisely that. Now we have actual MCU canonical proof that Frank Castle hates fascists. We didn't need that proof, but we have it. Thank you, John Bernthal. Thank you, Daredevil showrunners, for putting that in there. Guess what else I want to thank you for? I want to thank you for how this show ended. Because think about this, and I don't know if anybody pointed this out, but look at the dynamics of what we have right now going on in New York. Look at that mayor's office. Look who populates that mayor's office. Outside of Sheila, it's all white men. Fisk himself, Danny, and Buck, right? And then all of the officers, right? And yes, I know there's a couple of brown officers here and there. Again, fans of Harriet Beecher Stowe. Seriously, look that up if you don't know what I'm talking about. There's a few of those in there. But now, this is all the patriarchy. Older white men controlling New York with an iron fist like kings in that regard. Conversely, look at everybody that's in Josie's bar that's standing in there with Matt at the end, right? Look at Josie behind the bar, woman. Look at Cherry, black cop. Look at Angie Kim, female Asian cop. And then the other two uniformed officers in there, along with him and Karen, white female officers. You don't get any more woke than that, people. And it's awesome. It's fantastic. That type of symbolism, that type of imagery, like the juxtaposition of what we've got going on in the mayor's office and what we have going on in the resistance is striking, and it's obvious, and that's why I can't ignore it, because it's there. It's just as obvious as the hats in the election episode and all of the other stuff going on and all the parallels to real life. It's all there, guys. It's all there. And it is crazy that this show was assembled and completed before the election even happened, right? And yet, it is such a calling card. It is such a poignant thing for us to all see. Those of us in the United States that are dealing with it head on, right? If you're not in the United States and you're watching from afar, my goodness, boy, you just say a prayer for us, definitely, for sure, because we're going down in a bad way in many ways, right? But even Matt's whole mantra at the end of this episode: resist, rebel, rebuild. More than a few of us felt like he was talking to us. And you didn't see his face. That's the thing. He wasn't looking at the camera. You just saw the back of his head, but you heard the words: resist, rebel, rebuild. There are many of us in the United States of America right now that those words cut just a little deeper. No, a lot deeper at this point in time in our history. Most certainly they do. And that's just being honest, man. You know, this is one of those cases where, again, you know, art intersects with life in a social political fashion. And, you know, there's no way that, you know, these stories, you know, these heroes, these legends that have been constructed, you know, whether it's Marvel, DC, whatever it is, they come from a place of social political realm, you know, with respect to, you know, relatability, right? The characters are created as a result of that. Like, you know, they're fighting injustice, they're fighting fascists, they're fighting tyrannical leaders, they're fighting villains and you know, common thugs and whatnot. They're fighting evil at the end of the day, and the evil on some level has to be relatable. And this is one of those cases where, oh yeah, it's very relatable to many of us. And I love this show for that, and I hope it continues in season 2. They're currently filming it, and I don't expect that they will change their ways. Hopefully, you know, none of the Disney Lord and Masters will, you know, see what they did in this season and go, well, okay, no, you can't do that now. Yeah, you've got to... Don't silence this crew, you know, just because of who is in the White House. Don't do that. And I really hope that that does not happen. I hope that this crew continues to tell their story the way that they've been telling it so far through this first season, because this first season was excellent. It was a great return for these characters. It was all the connective tissue. You know, I do feel further enriched because I have that context from those original 3 seasons, and I do like that, you know, everything is completely canon within the MCU at this point, and I'm looking forward to season 2. Most certainly I am. I know we've got a year to wait, and I know we've got plenty of other stuff coming out before then, but I have enjoyed watching this show over the last 9 weeks. I've enjoyed keeping up with it, and I've enjoyed talking about it and reviewing it here, and to me, it's aces. It's absolutely aces. They nailed the finale. They did a strong job all season with the character development, and, you know, now shit's hit the fan, and we're just waiting to see just how much worse it gets before it gets better in season 2, which will drop next year on Disney Plus. But yeah, that's a rousing review from me, no doubt about it. And I think that's all I've got at this point in time for Daredevil Born Again here on Flightbox. So that'll do it for this particular episode of the show. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for supporting the Flightcast and this show. I know you all have thoughts. I know you want to talk about this. So absolutely get that feedback in so that we can talk about this on Flight Chat this upcoming Friday. I look forward to it. You know where to find me on Threads and Instagram at the FlightCast, on BlueSky at FlightCast. There's also the FlightCast YouTube page. You can post right underneath the post for this particular episode. And of course, I can be reached by email at ray@theflightcast.com. Don't forget, we will be back here next week talking about Andor Season 2. That's going to be a doozy because we're going to have 3-episode blocks to talk about each of the weeks that it comes out. So might be some longer episodes. I don't know. I got to figure out how to get them all watched and whatnot. But as of right now, we're going to stick to our schedule of Wednesdays with respect to this show. And hopefully I'll be able to keep tabs on that and be able to keep it consistent. This is going to test me. It is. It's going to challenge me as far as watching 3 episodes in one day, because it's not like Andor is not a dense show. It's a densely packed show. A lot of shit happens in those shows, in that particular show, in those episodes. But season 1 was fantastic. I have no doubt that the second and final season leading into Rogue One will be nothing short of phenomenal. Those are my expectations for it, but can't wait for that ride. That starts next Wednesday. And of course, Flight Chat will be this Friday, and I'll have my Sinners review as well this upcoming Saturday. But until then, take care, stay safe out there, and I will see you all next time. Take it easy.